Hey, how's it going, everyone? Bass here. So in today's video, I kind of wanted to do a hypothetical on the Green Bay Packers 2022 salary cap. Now, obviously, a week ago, I put out that video fixing the Packers salary cap where basically I did all the moves that I thought the Packers would do in order to get under the cap and what I think they will do. Now, I saw a few comments on that video and some other videos. Hey, what if the Packers decide to rebuild? What if they decide to pretty much, quote unquote, blow it up and rebuild? What would that look like, when it comes to the salary cap? So in today's video, I'm going to do just that. I'm going to break down the salary cap for the Green Bay Packers if they were to rebuild. All right, so just like last time, I'm going to show you guys the current cap situation with the Green Bay Packers, and that is negative $50,790,970 over the salary cap. $53,946,000 effective, meaning if they were to have 51 players on the roster. Now, the goal today is to get them under the cap, which would be before March 16th, without touching Aaron Rodgers' deal. This would then allow them to trade Aaron Rodgers and actually get back, a lot of draft capital. Now, what exactly the Packers would get back for Aaron Rodgers, that's for a whole nother video. But generally for this, not touching his deal, because if you were to restructure, obviously, then it kind of makes it impossible to trade him, and obviously the same with extending. So you kind of have to get under the cap. I mean, theoretically, you don't need to get under the cap. You could trade him before March 16th, but for this sake, I'm just going to leave his deal as is, and then obviously we'll go through what we would save by trading him. All right, so first, to help with the Packers' negative $50 million, I'm going to go ahead and extend a few players, kind of like I did last time, but I'm going to add a couple more here. First up is Kenny Clark. In my other video, I just restructured him, but if you're going to rebuild, I mean, he's your one of your better players on defense. He's 27 years old. He's signed through 2024. So if you could lower this cap hit this year from 20 mil down a little bit, extend him out maybe 2 years, probably around 2 years, $40 million mark, add 2 years and sign him through basically 2026, where he would be 31 years old. That would be ideal. So I'm going to go ahead and put together that contract and then show you guys. All right, so that deal I have here for Kenny Clark, as I said, I'm adding 2 years, $40 million, signing him all the way through 2026, moving some of the base salary out through these years, as well as obviously $18 million signing bonus as getting extended through the now what would be a 5-year contract. Moving some of his non-prorated bonuses out. This year's cap number goes down to 12.8 rather than that 20 million. And if you look in 2023, he's making 26. 2024, he's making 28. The next extension is the most obvious one that is 100% going to happen very shortly, and that is Jair Alexander. I'm going to extend him this same that I did in my last video, 5 years, $90 million, and then basically that would save $5 million off this cap number. I'm going to go ahead and throw that deal up there right now. All right, so this deal should look very similar to the fixing the cap video. I did move a little bit around just to kind of make it not as crazily backloaded as the previous one. His cap number this year is still going to be 7 mil there, so you're still saving, like I said, 5 million, 18 mil in 2023, 19.5 in 24, 21.5 in 25, and 24 million in 26. And the same exact thing goes for Adrian Amos. I extended him in my other video with a 2-year, $22 million deal. I'm going to do the same thing here. He's only signed through 2022. He's only 29 years old, so signing him until, he's 31 years old, I think is a good idea. Adrian Amos is a leader on this defense, and if you're going to rebuild, you need to have solid veterans on your defense that can lead that defense. Your defense needs to be the focal point of your team if you were to have Jordan Love leading this team. So re-signing Adrian Amos, or extending him more, should I say, to a 2-year deal, I'll throw up that contract right now. All right, so as you see here, it should be pretty similar to that previous video, lowering his cap hit to $8 million on 2022, then a cap hit of $9 million in 2023, and a cap hit of $10.5 million in 2024, then also added a void year, just like my last video, to kind of spread out that money a little bit more to help them out for these 3 years. Then with those 3 extensions, we're already down from $50 million all the way down to $32.5 million over the cap. And the last extension for now is going to be Kevin King again. And if you saw my previous video, the explanation here is he has a void year, as you see, in 2022. So he's not on the roster. He is an impending free agent. But since they added void years from last year on his $5 million deal, basically that pushed out some of that prorated bonus. And his cap number for next year is $3 million. Now you might be thinking, hey, why resign Kevin King? You really don't need him. You have Eric Stokes, Jair Alexander. You're probably going to resign Rasul Douglas. You have Shamar Jean-Charles. But it's going to be cheaper to resign Kevin King than not have him on the team. So it would be cheaper to have him on the team than not have him on the team. That's at a veteran minimum for him, and that's at $1.1 million there. So his cap number with a 1-year extension would be 1.85 or 1-year re-sign rather than that $3 million. So you renegotiate and you save a little bit there as well. All right, so now it is time to make some cuts, and there's gonna be a lot of them. Spoiler alert, a little bit more than the last video, because the last video you're making another run at a Super Bowl. This one you're rebuilding. So Za'Darius Smith saving $15 million is cut. Preston Smith saving $12 million. Again, cut. And that's going to be an issue, obviously. You only have Rashawn Gary and Tipa Naliai and John Garvin left. But there is going to be some free agents that I'll touch on later that the Packers could potentially sign to replace one of these edge guys. Randall Cobb, obviously, saving $6.7 million, cut. Dean Lowry, I restructured him on my previous video. You don't save as much restructuring, and you're also just pushing more money out to the future. That's really not what teams do. Not teams are going to do when they're rebuilding. I'm going to save a little bit more money. Now, obviously, they're going to be really thin at defensive line after this. But again, I'll show you some free agents. And, of course, through the draft, if they're going to trade Aaron Rodgers and then, say, tag and trade Devontae Adams, they're going to get a lot of draft capital. So they're going to be able to draft a lot of guys. So cutting Dean Lowry here saving $4 million. Mason Crosby saving almost $2.4 million. I cut him in the last video. I'm going to cut him here. Mercedes Lewis, going to cut him. Aaron Rodgers wouldn't be coming back in this scenario, nor do I think Mercedes Lewis would. So he'd either retire or the Packers straight outright cut him, saving $2.5 million. And then for some of the fringe roster guys, just like last video, Ty Summers, don't need him anymore. And then if we go down here a little bit, we have Tyler Davis, edge of the roster guy anyways, don't need him anymore. Going down a little bit more, Patrick Taylor, great running back. As I said in my previous video, I think he deserves a number 2 running back somewhere else. So go ahead and cut him. And then Steven Virtel, you know how I feel about Virtel. A horrible long snapper this year. Cut him as well. And just like that, without restructuring anyone, which we're going to do a lot less of, because if you're rebuilding, you don't want to push a bunch of bad money into the future years because you're rebuilding. We're already at $15.5 million under the cap, and we haven't touched David Bakhtiari, Billy Turner, or Aaron Rodgers. So as I said, I'm not trying to restructure anyone, but I think I'm going to have to restructure David Bakhtiari here. The reasoning for this is, when he's healthy, and that's a big asterisk because, what we saw last year, but when he's healthy, he's the best left tackle in the league. And if you're going to be moving on from Aaron Rodgers and going into Jordan Love, you need to protect him. End of the day, you need to protect Jordan Love. Now, this does push out a lot of money into future years. You save 8.1 this year with a max restructure, but as you see in the future years, you're at $30 million and then $34 million. So there's a quarterback numbers, as I said. But if Jordan Love is still on his rookie deal, those are sacrifices you can kind of make. A lot of times you can stack your roster with higher paid players that aren't a quarterback when they are on their rookie deal. So in this case, one of which is going to be David Bakhtiari. Give Jordan Love the best pass blocking and best left tackle in the league. So this next one in Billy Turner, I'm kind of 50-50 on. His last year of his deal is in 2022. He's already going to be 31 years old. He's a $9 million cap hit. Now, theoretically, you could save a little bit more on this year, pushing and restructuring money out, but he's already going to have a $2.6 million cap hit in 2023 for not being on the team. I think the Packers do move on from Billy Turner after this, especially in a rebuild. So I think in this case, let me get back here. I think in this case, I just leave him where he's at because it just doesn't make sense pushing that money out more and more through a rebuild. You stick with that 9.1 this year. Again, give Jordan Love, the protection he needs. Allow Billy Turner to remain there for one more year, and you just leave that as is. And another one I didn't touch up on in the last video is the Aaron Jones contract. I didn't touch him at all, and that remains the same here. Obviously, if you were to restructure, you'd save $2.8 million. But the thing about Aaron Jones is his deal, basically when he signed it, it was team-friendly for the first 2 years and then gave the Packers pretty much a very straightforward out in 2023. As you see here in 2023, if they were to cut him, they'd save 12.7 and only endure 6.5 in dead money. And if you look in 2023, he has a $19.25 million cap hit. So I guarantee that's not going to happen. He'll be 29 at that point. Running back shelf life is usually done by then or close to then. So at that point, I think the Packers do move on from him. So obviously, you wouldn't touch his deal here anyways. All right, so now we have to talk about Aaron Rodgers. Now, in this rebuild, obviously, the Packers are going to trade Aaron Rodgers. You're going to trade him before June 1st, I would assume, because you want draft capital for the 2022 draft. Now, like I said earlier, what they get for Aaron Rodgers, if this was the case, I'm not sure. I'm sure it would be a plethora of draft picks, a few starters, maybe from Denver. We really don't know, but that's not the point of this video. The point of the video is to see the cap situation in a rebuild, and that includes trading Aaron Rodgers pre-June 1st. His cap hit is $46 million. Trading him would save $19.8 million and incur $26 million in dead money. So you do that, and his cap number for 2022 is still $26 million. But now your cap space is all the way up to $43 million under the cap. And the same thing goes for Davante Adams. You would obviously franchise tender him here for $19 million, so your cap drops, but you would tag and trade Davante Adams, whether that be in a package deal with Aaron Rodgers or on his own. But again, you're going to get a lot of draft capital, and they're going to just rack up those picks for 2022, 2023, whatever it may be, and or players. So then you undo that, obviously, and then you're still at $43 million. So we'll just pretend you're Davante Adams here, tag and trade. So that allows the Packers to re-sign their impending free agents. They have plenty of room to work with now. Allen Lazard, if you're losing Adams, you need to get your receivers back. So Allen Lazard, same thing as last time, second round tender, $3.9 million. Basically, if a team were to offer him more than that number, the Packers have either the right to match whatever a team offered or allow him to go to that team, and then that team would then have to give the Packers a second-round draft choice. So then again, the Packers would just be getting more draft picks, and a team wouldn't do that for Allen Lazard, but I digress. Then Josh Nijman, I think he's really young, up-and-coming left tackle. You definitely tender him. We have Dominique Daphne. I think you tender him with Mercedes Lewis being cut. Same with Malik Taylor. You're trying to rebuild that special teams. And I think you have to at least tender one of Randy Ramsey or Rivers. Ramsey has more experience with, Z and Preston getting cut. You tender him. And those are all your restricted free agents and exclusive rights free agents. Actually, I missed one. Chris Barnes, you tender him as well. And then as for signing some of the impending unrestricted free agents for the Packers, I think you definitely extend Rasul Douglas. Again, just building the defense around Jordan Love and what you have here. And I'm going to give him the same deal as I did last time, 3 years, $12.5 million. He said he doesn't want much more than he made last year. That's $990K. Now, obviously, that could change if this whole rebuild thing goes into effect. A lot of this could change. Players might want more. But for the sake of, things, I'm just going to give him the same deal I did last time. So I'll bring that contract up now. And here's the contract. It's a 3-year deal. As I said, $6 million signing bonus. Cap number in 2022 is 3.1. $4 million in 2023 and $5.5 in 2024. Signing him, we still have $37 million in cap space. And next up is Devondre Campbell, and as for the same exact reasons as Rasul Douglas, you extend him, furthermore, like I said, building that defense. And I'm going to give him also the same deal as I did in last video, 3 years, $19 million, so I'll show that contract now. All right, so I'm going to change up one thing about this deal opposed to my last video. In my last video, I added 2 void years, standing out that, bonus a little bit more, but in a rebuild, you don't want to do that as much. And, we can afford it with $37 million we have in cap space. But again, that 3-year, $19 million, his cap hit would be 4.86 in 2022, 6.36 in 2023, and 8.57 in 2024. Signing him, now we're down to still 37, just a tad over $37 million under the cap. So in my last video, I didn't re-sign MVS, and the reason was I, tagged Davante Adams and tendered Allen Lazard. But in this video, Adams is gone, so I think you 100% need to bring back MVS, and I'm going to go ahead and sign him to a 3-year deal. I think 3-year, right around $20 million, maybe a little bit less, is right around the mark for him, maybe a little overpaying, but we'll see how that goes. MVS has said many times, even if the Packers were to move on from Aaron Rodgers, he would still re-sign with the Packers because he basically said, hey, regardless, I'd be playing with a new quarterback if I went somewhere else or if I stayed with the Packers when Aaron Rodgers left. So I'm going to go ahead and give that 3-year contract and then show you guys. All right, so with that 3-year contract, a tiny bit backloaded, but not crazy. amount. In 2022, a $5.5 million cap hit. 2023, $6.5 and $8 million in 2024. And then signing MVS brings us down to $31 million under the cap. So as I said, now that leaves the Green Bay Packers with $31.5 million in cap space. You're rebuilding, but you can still sign outside free agents. You're going to have to. Your roster is pretty thin at this point. You're really thin at edge. You're really thin at defensive line. You're thin at wide receiver. You're thin at tight end. So a couple guys they could sign in this scenario. Now, I'm not going to go into extreme depth because that's for another video. I will go into depth with videos on what the free agents the Packers could target this offseason if this were to happen or just in general. But one of which, since I didn't resign Bob Tunyon, Mike Gesicki, I think would be a great sign in this scenario. 27 years old. Pretty solid over his career, but he has, dealt with many, many quarterbacks. I think he'd be a nice target for Jordan Love, finally adding a athletic tight end to the Green Bay Packers. And Gesicki's market value via SpotTrack.com is $11 million annually. As for wide receiver, the Packers would certainly have to add a wide receiver out of free agency and probably the draft as well. One of which I have my eyes on is Christian Kirk, 26 years old. Has been pretty solid over his 4 years in Arizona. Hasn't topped 1,000 yards yet, but there's a lot of receivers in Arizona, a lot of targets to go around. He would be a solid number 1 or number 2 target for the Green Bay Packers under Jordan Love. And his contract evaluation by SpotTrack is 11.8, which I think is a little steep. I think you could definitely sign Christian Kirk for under that. And the other receiver I have, more of a taller physical receiver, is DJ Chark out of Jacksonville. He's been good given the circumstances in Jacksonville. 1,000 yards in 2019, 700 in 2020, only 154 here in 2021, but only 4 games played. And of course, Trevor Lawrence is not a good year at all. He's 26 years old, 6'4", 198 pounds. I would think he would be a good number 1 or number 2 target for the Packers with Jordan Love. And again, $11.9 million here. I think a tiny bit steep. I also think he could get signed for a little bit less than that. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, obviously cutting Za'Darius Smith and Preston Smith, the Packers would need to sign someone to help Rashawn Gary and most certainly draft a guy as well. One guy I have my eyes on here is Emmanuel Ogbah, 9 sacks 2 years in a row. He's 29 years old, so a little bit older, but a veteran that you could bring into this defense to help out the edge rushing room. I think he would be a great signing for the Packers defense in this situation. And Ogbah's contract evaluation is at $10.1 million, which I think is a good valuation. A tiny bit over what I think he'll get, but I think it's pretty fair. 28 years old, has produced the last 2 years pretty well, and $10.1 million if you were to get him at that cap number for next year. That would be the same cap number as Rashawn Gary's 5th-year rookie option. So Ogbah would really help out the outside linebacker edge room, given if they had to cut Z and Preston. Now, with the Packers cutting Dean Lowry to save that money, not bringing back Tyler Lancaster as an unrestricted free agent really leaves them with Kenny Clark, TJ Slayton, and Jack Heflin. So they would 100%, again, just like edge and receiver, need to sign a guy, probably draft a guy as well. And a guy I have my eyes on is Harrison Phillips, a good interior defensive lineman from Buffalo, 26 years old. And if you look at his contract evaluation, $5.4 million, I think he'd be a good rotational defensive lineman for the Packers, and they would need all the help they could get. And then finally, for defensive line, I do have B.J. Hill here from Cincinnati Bengals, having a very good year, 27 years old, 6'4", 315, 5.5 sacks, 6 tackles for losses, and 29 tackles in 2021. Again, another really good player to add to this defensive line room. The Packers should generally look at these 2 guys, in my opinion, anyways, even if they're not going through this whole rebuild thing. These 2 guys I do like in free agency, so long they are, available and at a good cost. And those are just some examples. I'm not going to put their contracts into here because you're kind of going really, really far ahead. But the main thing here is you see the Packers roster under a rebuild. The Packers, would have around 31 under this exact scenario, $31 million in cap space under the new Jordan Love-led Green Bay Packers, re-signing Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Rasul Douglas, extending Kenny Clark, Jair Alexander, Adrian Amos, Kevin King, also re-signing Devondre Campbell and tendering Alan Lazard. And then, of course, a plethora of players they'd be cutting / trading Aaron Rodgers, trading Devontae Adams after a tag, cutting Za'Darius Smith, cutting Preston Smith, cutting Randall Cobb, Dean Lowry, Mason Crosby, Mercedes Lewis, and then a couple fringe roster guys. So a lot of turnaround. But this is kind of what it may look like if they decide to go down that road. Now, like I said before, I don't think this is going to happen. But if they were to rebuild, this is probably what it would kind of look like. So I just wanted to give you guys that scenario. But that's going to do it for today. What's your thought on this? Do you think this is something that the Packers should think about? Do you want the Packers to rebuild? Me, myself, I think they can take another run at a Super Bowl. I think they can run it back. And my previous cap video showed that it is possible. So leave your thoughts in the comments down below. But on that note, I'll catch you on the next one. And as always, go Pack Go.